NXT starts off with a women's eliminator match to see who goes to Evolution to face Jacy Jane to become the new number one contender. We have four women's eliminator matches, which will eventually lead into a four-way. Whoever wins those eliminator matches will eventually lead to a fatal four-way for next week, and whoever wins that match become the new number one contender to face Jacy Jane for the women's NXT Women's Championship. We end up getting the first eliminator match between Jada Parker versus Thea Hale. Towards the end of the match, you end up getting Thea Hale putting Jada Parker in a Kimura lock. She constantly kept on applying this submission move. Like she applied this move like 4 times, constantly going after the left arm of Jada Parker. Jada Parker did actually tap out in the match, but the referee didn't see it. The referee was on the other side, so he didn't see Jada Parker tap out. This allowed Thea Hale to let go of the submission and start celebrating, but the referee didn't see it, so the match continued, and Jada Parker ends up hitting the Hypnotic to pick up the victory. I'm assuming this is going to continue the rivalry between Thea Hale and Jada Parker. They've been, going back and forth for a couple of weeks. I'm assuming that next week, most likely Thea Hale will probably either cost her the fatal four-way match or probably come out and confront Jada Parker due to bringing up the fact that she did tap out. She deserved the victory that Jada Parker didn't deserve to be in that fatal four-way next week. So I'm assuming this is going to continue that rivalry. So I did like the way it did play out. It was a solid match overall. Very interested to see how that plays out. I'm assuming most likely either Thea Hale is going to interfere in the match next week or maybe confronts her or maybe distracts her of some sort. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. Then right after, we end up getting another women's eliminator match between Kalani Jordan and Lash Legend, which was very surprising because I did not expect Lash Legend to pick up the victory. I thought Kalani Jordan was going to win because Shawn Michaels is very high on Kalani, so I'm very shocked that Kalani actually lost this match, and she lost cleanly. She lost cleanly too, so which was also very surprising. I thought this, out of all the matches, this would have the highest chance of having more of a screwy finish, but Lash Legend picked up the victory cleanly, so she will advance to be in the Fatal 4-Way next week for the number one contendership. I don't think she's going to win. I actually think she has zero chance of winning, but it is very interesting. Also, too, change her theme song. Her theme song is terrible. Please change her theme song. Like, please change it. Like, her theme song sucks. Like, it's absolutely terrible. Please change that thing. Like, my God, that thing is so bad. We end up getting the family. We get a segment between Tony D'Angelo and Luca. Tony D'Angelo is basically questioning Luca, questioning his trust. He's asking him all these questions. He's asking him what happened between him and Staggs, asking him what happened in the desert. Luca basically ends up responding back, ends up saying that he was just stranded in the desert, that Staggs just left them there, just left them stranded, and that nothing really happened. Tony D'Angelo is continuing not to trust Luca. Then you get Channing Staggs. He ends up coming out. He ends up mentioning, he ends up talking to Luca, ends up that he always believed in Luca. He always trusted Luca, that he feels like Luca has a higher ceiling and that he would never be able to reach the potential being along Tony D'Angelo. And Staggs ends up mentioning the desert, ends up saying that he ended up rescuing Luca from the desert. Tony D'Angelo looks at Luca. He's a bit confused and he starts not to trust Luca again. Then Channing Staggs, he ends up having some henchmen with him. He ends up attacking Tony D'Angelo. Luca ends up taking out the henchman. He was about to attack Channing Staggs, but he ends up accidentally attacking Tony D'Angelo. So, of course, this is causing a rift between Luca and Tony. Later on, it was a segment between Tony, Luca, and Ava. Tony wants Luca to have a match with Channing Staggs, but he can't. Because next week, Channing Staggs is going to have a match against Noam Dar for the Heritage Cup, which is very surprising because I recently mentioned the Heritage Cup, but now they're actually having a match for it. I'm assuming that two things are going to happen in that match. Either Tony D'Angelo is going to cost Channing Staggs the match, or he's going to have Luca cost Channing Staggs the match, but Luca won't do it, and Channing Staggs ends up becoming the Heritage Cup champion. That's how I see it playing out. They're slowly building this. They're slowly building the whole Luca getting the game, getting the trust of Tony D'Angelo, but he's going to keep failing, which is either going to lead to one or two things. I'm assuming either it was all a trick the whole time, that Luca was actually working with Staggs, or he just betrays Tony due to Tony not trusting him. So we'll see how this plays out, but they're slowly building up this story. Then we end up getting the women's eliminator matches. They just wanted to get these eliminator matches out the way. They did these all back to back for the most part. They wanted to get these matches out the way. We end up getting Zarya versus Izzy Dame. Towards the end of the match, you end up getting Tatum Paxley. She comes out and ends up hugging Soruka distracting Soruka and Zarya, which allowed Izzy Dame to pick up the victory, which was very surprising because I thought Zarya was going to win. I didn't think Izzy Dame had a shot of even being in the Fatal 4-Way, but I'm not mad at it, and it protects Zarya. So they end up the story that they're telling here is that Tatum Paxley is looking for friends, and she's trying to find friends between Zarya and Soruka, or side with Izzy Dame. They end up having a segment. Tatum Paxley is apologizing, but Zarya is not accepting her apology. Izzy Dame ends up confronting them, ends up saying that Soruka and Zarya are not their true friends, and that she will actually be her true friend instead. And Tatum Paxley ends up leaving off. I don't know if she ends up following Izzy Dame, but they're clearly telling the story of eventually Tatum Paxley potentially turning heel and joining the Culling. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. But then right after, we end up getting Lola Vice versus Jordan Grace, and Jordan Grace picks up the victory. So the final four is going to be Izzy Dame, Jordan Grace, Jada Parker, and Lash Legend. That's very interesting. I'm very interested to see who wins that match. I'm assuming it's probably going to be Jordan Grace or Jada Parker. No reason for Izzy Dame or Lash Legend to really win that match. Might as well go with the two most over women. Well, I will go with the most over woman, which is Jada Parker. Speaking of Jordan Grace, well, overall, the crowd sucked. The crowd sucked in general. This crowd was terrible. If you weren't Jada Parker, if you weren't Blake Monroe to a degree, like, this crowd was not excited at all. Like, or if you weren't Trick Williams, the crowd did not make any noise for the most part. This crowd sucked. But Jordan Grace really got barely any reaction on tonight's show. Barely. Lola Vice got more cheers than her, which is kind of crazy. So hopefully, I'm assuming she's going to get called up soon, either after Evolution or after Great American Bash, but whatever. Well, they're basically damn near on the same night. But so whatever, which one comes first, hopefully she get called up. So I'm assuming she's not going to win the match at Evolution, but we'll see how that plays out. Now we get the main event. The only good thing on this show, because everything else was okay for the most part, but the only good thing on the show, Blake Monroe, she signs her contract. You get Fatal Influence, they interrupt. They basically end up saying that Ava is kissing up to the new NXT signee, Blake Monroe, and that they built this women's division. They've been running the women's NXT division for a year, and that Blake Monroe is not about to take their place. Blake Monroe ends up saying that they're insecure and calls them bitches. And then JC Jane ends up responding back. I don't know exactly what she said. But then Blake Monroe ends up attacking JC Jane. Fallon Henley jumps in. Blake Monroe was having the upper hand, but then JC Jane ends up attacking her from behind. Then they put her through a table, and that's the end of the segment. You can't have a contract signing without someone getting put through a table. But I actually like this. This made Fatal Influence look somewhat strong to a degree. And JC Jane was great. JC Jane and Blake Monroe, their back and forth on the mic was really good. I'm enjoying JC Jane's title reign so far, and I can't wait to see what they do. I was very confused on why Blake Monroe was not in the Eliminator matches, but the more and more I think about it, it makes more sense now, because I think I know what's going to happen. The Great American Bash is on July 12th, and you have the Women's Evolution pay-per-view on July 13th. All In is on July 12th. I'm assuming this is what they're going to do. JC Jane is clearly going to be in a feud with Blake Monroe. I'm assuming what they're going to do is they're going to have Blake Monroe face JC Jane at the Great American Bash on July 12th, the same day as All In. Have Mariah May or Blake Monroe, whatever you want to call her, win the NXT Championship, and she goes into Evolution as the champion. That's what I'm seeing, because there's no other explanation for this. That's the only thing I can see, because WWE has a weird fetish for trying to one-up AEW. If you want to one-up AEW, just have Blake Monroe win the NXT Women's Championship on the same night as All In. That's how you get buzz. That's how you can take some attention off All In, even though I don't think it's really going to do that much of a difference. But if they want to, put the eyeballs on them and really want to one-up AEW like they typically want to do, Mariah May has to win at the Great American Bash. And I actually don't hate it, because she's the only one that should be winning against JC Jane. So overall, this show is very mid, if I'm going to be honest, but that was the only good thing about the show, and that could go a lot of different directions, so I'm very interested to see how they build that feud up. But overall, you guys let me know your thoughts, opinions below. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. But yeah, that's it.